Okay, so in this video, our target is to fix the API endpoint after this JWT authentication. So first of all, first of all, what we want to do is actually we want to have a, this DTO, user task DTO. Why we need it, I will show you quickly. Let's just first work on this thing and then we will move on the next point. Okay, so let me just create a DTO in this user task DTO. Okay, user task DTO. So what should it have? It should have actually field user ID and task ID and constructor. Okay, so let's just have a private. Basically, it's a long user ID and private. It's a long task ID. Okay, and here we should have something like no argument constructor at the end, full argument constructor, all argument constructor, and also we have should have a getter and setter. Okay, so this thing is there. It means that completed. So the next thing that we need to do is actually add to task repository. There are few methods that we need to add. Okay, so let's just go to the method. Let's just open the task repository. User, no, it's not task repository. Okay, it's task repository, and from here we actually find by user ID. Okay, we do not have find by status. We just have find by status. So we want to add find by user ID, and so basically what it does, it return a list of tasks on the basis of user ID. So what should it receive? It should receive long user ID. Okay, so this is the first method that we need to add, and the second method find by user ID and find by ID and user ID. So this should return a task because we are passing the ID, so the chances are that it won't have more than one task assigned to it because each task has unique ID. Okay, so that thing is there, and let's just see, do we have any other method? So you can see here, it's find by ID and user ID. Even though the each task ID is assigned a unique number, but it could be possible that user can hit the endpoint with some task ID by interchanging and can grab the task of someone else. So that's why we want to make sure that this does not happen in our case. Okay, and what else we need to do actually? We need to have something like void delete by ID and user ID. Okay, so it should have task ID and it should have a user ID. Okay, so this method is actually needed as well. So I have added three methods into this. Let's just go forward, and here what else we need to do is after these things, what we have to do is actually we have to change task API endpoint. So let's just fix the task API endpoint. Let's just open the task controller. Okay, so you can see here, basically we do want to have API task user, API user task, and so for delete we want to this thing. Okay, and for get task we want to have just pass the user ID, and for get single task, like, so we want to pass a task ID. We just want to append this thing. Okay, so we can just close it. Okay, let's just come here, and so let's just change this thing because this should be an ID. It should be a path variable, so that's why it's a path variable. And okay, that is there, and it should be task ID, and that, let's just keep this two method: create task, put task, and delete task. So for the delete task, just remove this thing. Okay, and next thing what we need to do is actually we need to fix some names. Okay, you can see, we need to fix some names like uh, I mean first of all, if we look at the delete, we should have a model attribute, because I told you that if we want to delete something, we should have two very things. We just write in a method we just write a method user ID and task ID. So let's just have a model attribute and let's just have a user ID. Okay, and the second thing that we should have is a task ID. I mean, there are two way to do these things. First, either I declare a path variable and receive these two parameter. Second, I just created an object user detail user task DTO. So why shouldn't I use this thing here? Because it has all the things. Okay, and so you can say delete task. I mean, it call the delete thing. Okay, we will fix it. I mean, let's just go to the delete service. Like, let's just go to the let's just okay. So user task user. Let's just call it a user. Okay, so to simplify, user dot get user id user dot get task id. Okay, although I mean it is pointing that it is an issue, let's just fix the in the task service by going into the task service. Okay, come here and here we have. Okay, so let's just receive the variable long user id and long task id and user id. Okay, so after receiving this both we have to create delete by ID and we have to pass. I mean, you can see that first of all we have to pass task ID and then we have to pass a user ID. Okay, and as you know, this method is not written uh, by the JPA. We have written by itself, so we have to add transactional annotation here in order to for it work. Okay, and here we actually need to call the task repository dot find by uh, ID and so let's just pass task ID here and then task passed uh, so so we can actually receive the full object. What if the thing is dead? If I receive the full object and let me just decide by myself that what to go user dot get ID and user dot get get uh, it's not user detail, it's called user task detail. Okay, so user dot get task ID and user dot get user ID. Okay, and the same thing. Let me just copy this thing. Okay, so let me just copy it here. Okay, so that is completed. We could see that there are some issues in it. And where are these issues? So we will. I mean, for the moment, I think uh, let's just comment out all the test case because we have to fix it later. I mean, these are not updated. So we will fix out all those test cases and we will see it later. Okay, we will see it later that what is the issue. And so here, if you could see here, user dot get user ID and user dot. So instead of passing it in this way, we should pass it the complete object. Okay, so that is done. So the delete task is completed. That is completed. Let's just try to see what was done. So we have, I mean, that is done actually. Okay. Create task API endpoint. You can see that delete is actually completed. And let's just work on the get task. Okay. So if we just remember get task, so we just rename it to get tasks. Okay, and let's just call it get task and let's just fix it to get task as well and let's just go to the task repository. Okay, and should also name it get task and we should receive the long user ID and we should actually call the function find by user ID find by user ID, and we should pass user ID. Okay, and what else need to do actually? So we need to pass user ID from here as well. So it should receive, because it's a path variable, so that's why we have to long user ID. Let's just call a user ID. Okay, user ID is there. So that is completed. Let's just work on the get task. Okay, get task. You understand this should be model attribute. The reason it has to be model because we need both these things like user detailed user ID and task ID. So let's just copy this thing. Let's just copy this thing. Okay, because it is the same thing. Okay, and here we should just pass the complete object. So let's just try to fix it in the task service, and you can see it actually get by title. So this is the issue. Okay, get task is here and it is actually causing the issue. So let's just convert it user detail DTU, user task DTU, and let's just say it's a user, and let's just copy this thing, exact this thing. Okay, and from here we can actually then pass the task DTU. Okay, so that would be done. That would be done. So what else we need to do actually? If we just try to look at okay, get it. So all these things are done. Okay, and if you try to look at the get task, we have request as model attribute as okay, and user task duty is received and passed it to service. So task controller endpoint is completed. That just comes a task API service. Okay, first of all, we need to reorder it. Okay, so when I say it's need to be reordered, it means that the functions that are actually related to the so reorder means first of all get method. Okay, let's just place the get method here. Okay, after this these are two get method. Okay, and then we have a persist task. Persist task is a helper method. Okay, so let's just put it at the end, and we have a delete task, create task, find by ID does not need it, so we can actually remove it. Okay, and if you try to look at the create task, update task, so all these methods are called from the persist task. So in the task DTO, I mean, so here we have to actually persist task. So let's just call task repository dot find by ID. Okay, so if we have to persist a task, what do we need to check? We need to check if the ID is null or not. Okay, so if the ID is null, then we should create a uh, dot get. Okay, let's just call is present. If it is empty, I think it should be called is empty. Okay, if it is empty, it means that we should create a task. Else we need to update the task. And what it is saying, that it is actually saying that the entity is something like that is optional. Okay, and we have to return task DTO. So let's just have this thing like war uh, uh, new entity one. Let's just call it entity one is equal to null. So persist task will be called from the, let's just try to go back and let's just try to understand what we are actually doing. So if you look at the task controller, if you want to create a task, you call this thing, okay? So we want to make sure that this task does not exist, okay? And for deleting, we actually have coupled it with the uh, user ID. So here we should also couple it with the user ID and dto dot get ID and dto dot user ID. Okay, so if that is the case, uh, we will not have some, means this will be an entity, and we can just simply check it whether it is null. Okay, so we just go ahead and create it, else we need to update it, and at the end of the day we need to return it. Okay, so this is done, this is done, this is done. Let's just remove the all the remaining method. So let's just try to see that what else we need to do. So reorder is done, removed, and get all tasks we already done. Okay, and that is already done. Okay, delete task, receive user DTO, make it transactional. So that is also done. Persist task. So we have already added and removed unused import. So that is done. Why it is actually showing an error? It is showing an error on this point. Use of this. Okay, else that is comment. Okay, it means that we can actually run this thing. So let's just run it and test the code. Once it's get completed running, then we will test the code. Okay, it has ran fine. Let's test it. Okay, so let's test it. First of all, we need to check home endpoint. Okay, so it is without auth and we can access it. Yes, we can access it. Let's just sign up. Sign up. There is no, currently there is no user. Okay, I just deleted all the records. There is only one user, that is called admin. So it should be created. You can see it is created. If you try to hit again, it will give an error. So let's just try to log in. Okay, and log in with teacher. So you can see. So let's just copy this token and let's just try to create a task. Okay, so here I am. Let's just try to create a task. So what task actually I'm trying to create is called prepare notes. Okay, and you need to check what was the user ID. User ID was 19. Okay, because user ID is required. Uh, so let's just say user ID is 19. So it is false. It can say you can create it. Let's just create another task that is called distribute nodes. Okay, so distribute nodes also created, and both have 23 and 24 IDs like. And let's just go forward. Let's just try to update 23 means distribute nodes. Okay, so let's just call it a title and just let's just call it a distribute nodes. Distribute nodes. Okay, and we should also pass an ID here. That is called 21, I think, because when the task was created, uh, distribute nodes was like 23, I think. So 23 it is. So that just we just need to copy the authorization tab as well. Okay, so let's just pass it. 23 distributes nodes. We want to set its status as true, and we are going to do it for user 19. Okay, so let's just change the user as well. By the way, if you can access all the get all tasks for the user, let's just try to paste the user 19, how many tasks it has. So it has user task 19, API user task 19. And when I try to hit this thing, I'm actually getting error like. So maybe I just need to the copy the authorization. So it is consistent. We are getting API user task. API user task. It's called get mapping. And when we pass the task ID, we are actually not getting error. So let's just go here and then we will come back to this point. So the user is 19 and the task ID is 22. So and let's just copy this thing. So you can say 20. I think it's a 23 task. Okay. So 23 it should be prepared notes and the status is you can see it's a false. So let's just come to the update task. Okay. We are passing the task ID and we're marking the status as true. So once we hit it, it actually returned as true. And let's just hit it again. So you can see it's actually set as true. So the only endpoint that seems to be not working, we will see it right now. Okay. All the other endpoints are working. Okay. Okay, so let's just see here. Here, I mean, if you see, this is the endpoint that is actually not working. There are two mistakes in it. First of all, it is not forward slash. There is no forward slash in it. And the second, if it is ID, then it should also be an ID. And if it is user ID, then it should be user ID. So let me just convert it to the ID because ID is mostly used. And let's just pass it in this way. Let's just rerun it and test it again. Okay. And so it has rerun. Let's just test it. So let's just hit it. You can see that it's 19, a user and the bearer token. Let's just try to sign up and try to pass the new token. So let's just pass it. You can see that actually this is a task that exists. So let's just try to delete this task because the read endpoint was not tested. So task was user ID was 19, task was 23. So you can see right here from the task, it is 23, user ID is 19. So this is a delete endpoint and let's just paste the latest. So it can say object deleted and let's just try to get it null. Okay. It means everything is working. So that's it.